Okay, open up your Bibles, if you would, to Matthew chapter 14. We'll be looking at a passage there in a second. Good job on Bible Jeopardy, everybody. As a tough one, no multiple choice. You had to know the answer. That was tough, but you did really well. Good job on that. Okay, we're going to actually only look at a specific event in Matthew 14, but just so we know what's going on in the grand scheme of things, the context. Jesus' growing popularity led to some hostilities from some of his enemies, Herod Antipas, and the rejection of his hometown there at the end of Matthew chapter 13. So he withdraws for prayer to avoid some premature confrontation. We also read about the feeding of the 5,000. That's the only miracle that's listed in all four of the Gospels. We have it here, and of course all the other ones as well. And when he does this, in the book of John we read about this, what was it the crowds wanted to do with Jesus after he fed them? They wanted to crown him king. They wanted, that's John chapter 6, verse 15. And now, we know there also in John, he talks about that the disciples get into the boat. But here in Matthew, if you look down there at verse 22, it says, immediately Jesus, made the disciples get into the boat. He made them do it. And so when you tie everything together, it makes you wonder, we'll look at that here in just a second. Well, why would he make them do that? Whenever you're reading Matthew, you're just thinking, well, why do you do that? But when you look over there, what happened in John, maybe I guess this gives us a little context of what's going on in that situation, that he would make them get in that boat and send them out while the crowds are probably looking to make him king, and then he goes off into a secluded place to pray. Because how did he stop them from making him king? If they were going to go make him do that, wouldn't they just do it? How did he avoid that? What's that? Yeah, like when they were going to stone him. Remember that in his own hometown, they had a hold of him and he just walked away. It's probably something miraculous, and that's probably what it may have happened here as well. And so we'll get to that here in just a little bit. Of course, then the storm hits. The text tells us the fourth watch. If you got a little side notes to tell you that's around 3 to 6 a.m. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on here. So we're going to be looking at Jesus walking on the water. In fact, let's read the passage and then we're going to work through this text. Immediately, Jesus, made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side while he sent the crowds away. After he had sent the crowds away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And when it was evening, he was there alone. But the boat was already a long distance from the land, battered by the waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." Peter said to him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." And Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But seeing the wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and took hold of him and said to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind stopped. And those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "You are certainly God's Son." So, sometimes obedience leads to trouble, right? So, who made the disciples get in the boat? Jesus. And he sent them out. The New American Text, Standard Text tells us that they were a long distance from the land. Anybody have a footnote on that or a different phrase?
600 feet.
What's that, Jim?
600 feet.
600 feet. Oh, Sue?
Daniel.
Yeah, that's right, Stallion. It's about 600 feet out into the water. So they haven't gotten very far, but that's far enough. And the waves and the winds blowing, battering into them. And as all that's going on, here comes Jesus walking on the water. But I want to zone in on, he made them do it. Did Jesus know this was coming? I mean, they're only 600 feet. Yeah. They're only 600 feet out there. But he made them go into that. How scary do you think that must have been for them? Oh, Hazel? Oh, would you be scared if you were in a boat out on the sea and the winds and everything was there a big storm? Yeah, that would be scary. What's that, Jolene? Oh. You're not going to be afraid? Well, those experienced fishermen who've been on that sea many times, they were afraid. They were scared. And so he commanded them, but obedience doesn't always guarantee smooth sailing, right? In the world, Jesus tells us in John 16, in the world you will have tribulation. They're not always punishments for sin, as Job brought up. They can be for correction. Can you name some people that we know in the Bible where God sent trouble to them in order to correct them? Some pretty notable ones. Okay, you got the Israelites. There's actually one of them here with us tonight. Jonah. What happened to Jonah? Caleb.
He got eaten by a fish.
Eaten by a fish, right? And what was the correction that God was trying to give him? God made this trouble happen to him in his life. He was even on a boat with a storm going on. Why did that happen to him?
Because he didn't go to the city to tell the people.
That's right. He did not obey. And God sent trouble his way. Also, sometimes God does that in order to perfect us, right? Send trouble our way, revealing Jesus more fully to the disciples in the case of Matthew chapter 14. Maybe it would help us to view trials as a race, as we mentioned, the Bible text tells us quite often. And think of that cloud of witnesses all around, the faithful Old Testament ancestors watching us, urging us on, that we should lay aside our sin, run with endurance, fix our eyes on Jesus. Does that sound familiar? Fixing our eyes on Jesus? As Paul talking about running the race. What was it that caused Peter to start sinking into the water? Jody, you paying attention? What was it that caused Peter to start sinking into the water? What did he do? He doubted. That's what the text tells us later on. But while he's out there, he's walking, right? He's walking on the water, but what does he notice before he starts sinking into water? The wind and the waves. So that means he took his eyes off of Jesus. He took his eyes off of Jesus. And so he began to sink into the water. Sometimes, as we all know, Jesus sends storms into our lives. It is simply not the case that obedience to the will of Christ always results for us in smooth sailing. It's easy to reach, false conclusions when trouble comes down upon us. If all this is happening to me, I must not be doing God's will. Have you ever thought that? Why am I going through all these troubles? I must be doing something wrong in my life. God must be upset with me. What other famous Bible character do we know that made that statement? That's kind of a paraphrase. I must have done something wrong for God to be upset with me. Or what have I done wrong that God would be so upset with me? Job. Right, that was pretty much his statement for the majority of Job. What did I do? But did he do anything wrong? So why did the trouble come upon him? Why did it happen? Okay, Satan wanted to test him, but God kind of hinted to him, well, have you considered my servant Satan, or my servant Job? Yeah. Oh, you've got a hedge around him. Take away that hedge, he'll curse you. Go ahead. Just don't touch it. Oh, you let me touch him, then he will curse you. All right, go ahead, but spare his life. So why did God allow that to happen to Job? Okay, testing. Who's that? Yeah, testing. But remember when we were discussing this on Wednesday night? It was to perfect, to bring to completion, I think, the faith of Job. He had some misunderstandings about God. And those began to come to light in the text for us through the trials. Because even he thought, well, the hand of God must be heavy upon me. If he'd only come down here and let me present my case to him. Why is this happening to me? I've done nothing wrong. Well, Job, that's not how it works. That's perfecting Job's faith. He had faith. He was patient. He had endurance. God bless him for getting through that without sinning. But he had some areas in his life where he needed some refining. Some perfection needed to happen. And I think that's why this came upon Job. Storms can come to us in our lives for the same reason. To perfect us. Maybe it's not that we sin. It's in order to help us get over that one little hump, maybe that one step that we've been struggling with. We're not growing in our faith, and this is to push us on our way. Or maybe to help us see some of the things that need to be not groomed, pruned out of our lives, and let go of those things and focus more on God. Get our eyes fully fixed on Him. It could be that, right? Jesus reassures when Peter begins to sink. Remember, he yells up, "Lord, save me." I'm sorry, I got that jumping ahead there. When he comes out and they see him, they think it's a ghost. Well, before we get into this, why would they think it was a ghost? Do they not know who Jesus is? Why would they think, if they saw Jesus coming, walking out on the water, why would they think it's a ghost? People don't walk on water. Now, that's a good point. How many miracles have the disciples seen up to this point? 40? Maybe. We actually don't know. But we know over in John, we've come pretty far away. If John's got it listed there in his, how many do you think they may have seen? Do you think more than 10? More than 20? More than 50? Maybe, probably. If again, remember how John begins to end his letter. If all the works that Jesus had done had been written down, and all the books would be able to contain it. So quite a lot has happened. Why couldn't they believe that somebody could walk on water at this point? When you're already afraid, can anything make you afraid? Like, isn't that what scary movies do? They build the tension. You're already a little nervous, and then all of a sudden the jump scare gets you really big. So they're already afraid, and now they see someone walking on the water. And so they're afraid. It's a ghost. And Jesus reassures them, take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid. And of course, then he invites faith. Peter walked out on water at his command, but he sank when he began to focus. He doubted, right, Jody? He rescues him, but then he gives him that rebuke. You of little faith, why did you doubt? So when we are in these storms, what is the point? Well, count on Jesus for rescue. Why do we struggle with that? When we actually find ourselves in storms in our life, whatever it might be, why do we struggle with depending on Jesus? Pride? Yeah, definitely pride. Like, what is our first reaction when we are having trouble? Let's throw one out there. I know this one well because I just went through it. So cancer. Did I think, you know what, Jesus will take care of it. I'm not going to the doctor anymore, right? Is that going to save me? No. Oh, wouldn't that goes, that plays that joke about the flood waters, right? The guy praying for saving, and then the guy in the boat, the helicopter, all these things, then he dies. Well, God tried to save him. He just didn't act on the things that were available to him. A lot of things available to me. So God saved. Jesus saved me. I'm healthy, doing well. Why do so many people reject Christ when hard times come? Even those who profess to be Christians. I remember this one lady, I guess it'd be okay for me to say her name. It's been a long time. Sarah Church. Remember Sarah Church? She blamed God for everything that happened in her life. Every bad thing. I remember Mick and I went up there and talked with her so many times. But she thought it was blame God for that. She was almost like in a situation with Job, except that she was not willing to be patient and wait on the Lord. She just turned her back on the church, believing everything that happened to her and her family was because God was against them. Why does that happen?
Control and a lack thereof.
Okay, a control and a lack, losing control. When you have such a strong control of your life and everything's going well, then all of a sudden you lose total control of everything, and you no longer have it. Jim?
To some extent, I feel someone could be suffering from
I'm sorry?
a weak faith.
Okay, their faith was already weak, and now the tribulation is showing just how weak that faith really is. That's true. Yep.
Sometimes we just want something tangible.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Sometimes we want something tangible. You want me to just reach out there to nothing and believe that that's going to save me? I know it's going to save me. Dr. Ramanucci. I'm going to do it. I'm going to drive myself down there. All these things that I do. Like Nebuchadnezzar. Did Nebuchadnezzar lead as a general all those armies and take over all those countries and make Babylon great? Did he do that? He did. He did. And even he said that. But it was God that allowed it to happen and gave him the wherewithal to make it happen. And he didn't give that glory to God. Did Elon Musk build his empire? He did. He has. But who let that happen? Who gave him the ability to make that happen? God did. I mean, if I had his talents, maybe I'd be able to do the same thing. But I don't. I have my own talents. And all these other things. God blesses. Like, again, I'll say it again. I love that old Rush Limbaugh saying. Talent on loan from God. That's true. And where did we get these talents? God gave them to us. Or go back, another joke that I've used here several times about the scientists who thought they didn't need God anymore, right? And then they told God, we don't need you. And God said, all right, let's have a test. See who can make life. The scientists agreed. You remember this joke? And God said, all right, you go first. And the scientists reached down to grab dirt. And what did God say? Get your own dirt. You can't use anything of mine. Which would be what? Nothing. It's all his. It's all his. I'm sorry, Bill, you had your hand up.
I forgot the question. That was a while back.
Sorry.
I think to answer your question, if I remember correctly, that I think a lot of people, when they get baptized, they think everything's going to be rainbows and butterflies. Because now I'm a Christian, God's going to take care of me, and I'm not going to be poor anymore, or I'm not going to have any disease, or
Straight A's in school.
right. In school, I don't have to study because I'm a Christian now, and that's not the case.
How much spiritual growth have you ever attained when you had everything easy? If you ask Alex, me, Gary, Bill, anyone, Connor, anyone who's got up here and done a Devo, a class, or a sermon, say we learned more in that moment than we had in most things. Because we had to work, you've got to work hard. And especially if you do that first one, especially if it's a class and people are asking questions, then you're going to study even harder for the second one, because not only you have to have your class ready, you got to anticipate whatever questions people might have. And so you got to be really ready. It's a trial to be ready for class. It's a hard trial to tackle, because you got to anticipate so many things. Or when you what is it? How does James open up his letter in James chapter 1, 2, 3?
Treat all as joy.
Huh?
treat it all as joy.
Yeah, consider it all joy. Why? Consider what joy?
Life's trials and tribulations.
That's right. The trial. And why do we consider that joy?
You're growing.
Yeah, you're growing. The endurance. You're going to, when you overcome this and you get on the other side of this, your endurance is going to grow and you're going to be able to handle more. And you're going to see things differently because you're growing and you're understanding in your spiritual walk with Christ. That's James 1, 2 through 4. Jesus always deals with us according to our faith. Peter was on something of a spiritual roller coaster during the episode of the walking on the water. Think about it. He experienced fear. He experienced hesitation. He experienced courage, then fear again, and then finally trust. Right? It's this perfect little roller coaster. It's like that one little event right here is exactly how our lives always feels like, right? Ups and downs, ups and downs. We think we're doing great, and then we're not. We're doing great, and then we're not. And in those moments where we feel like we're not doing great, what's usually going on in our lives? A storm. It's another storm. Oh, another one. It always seems like it's something. But that's just things that are going to help us grow as long as we keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. Jim.
At the beginning of your conversation here, you asked who in the Bible questioned God and why did something happen. It reminded me of Sunday, and I don't forget if it was in the Bible study. Someone came to Jesus and asked, what sins did this blind man do to be left blind?
And his disciples asked, what sin, was it his sin or his parents' sin that he was born like this?
Right.
Yeah. And it was a misunderstanding of the situation. And Jesus said, neither his sin nor that of his parents, but that the might or the glory of God might be revealed in him. So, looking back here with Peter, with his little roller coaster in his life, Jesus responded and met, I think, his faith at every single point. He gave Peter all that his faith could handle. When the entire group was afraid, he did what? Gave them assurance. When they that's what they needed most. When Peter was hesitant, he gave a command. When he had courage, he sustained him in his faith. When Peter faltered and cried out for help, he caught him. He saved him from his own fear. But he never let him go because Peter did trust Jesus. Sometimes it was going great, sometimes it was going bad, but he was always there for him. Peter's faith, just like yours and mine, always there's ups and then there's downs. We're always finding ourselves like that. It's when we're on those down parts, we need to recognize and remember we're not alone. It's like that picture. You may see it in some people's homes of a footprints in the sand. You know what I'm talking about from that poem? That's right. Where were you? They thought he was alone. Here I see these footprints. You're beside me, and then all of a sudden I'm all by myself. He goes, no, those are my footprints. That's the time when I carried you. That was this time of storm. That's Christ. In our lives, we just forget. And what is it that causes us to forget? When we get distracted. That is the number one thing that seems to always get us. We're distracted. Beware Satan's one of his tricks is being that lion's roar, right? And what does that roar do? When you hear it, if you're out there in the savannah and all of a sudden you hear this lion's roar, what do you do if you're walking along? You stop. It makes you stop and look around. You get worried. And so that's what he does. He distracts us, stops us from the forward progression we need and ought to be making. Storms will come. They were always around. Peter and his disciples, they needed to learn who he was. And when he got into the boat, what happened? As soon as Jesus got in the boat, what happened? The storm stopped. And then what did the disciples do? And this might really be the Son of God. Might really be the Son of God. Doesn't that seem like... Actually, look at that text again. Let me make sure I know I'm not saying it exactly right. So, Verse 32, when they got into the boat, the wind stopped, and those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "You are certainly God's son." Are they just now coming to that recognition? What did John say when he saw Jesus coming, and he turned and said to his disciples, and many of those disciples are still there with Jesus, and they were there around John. It's not like they were unaware of these things. What did he say when he saw Jesus coming? Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Who else could that possibly be but the Messiah? And that wasn't like it was done under a rock, everything that's been happening. They've seen many, many miracles. Why does this one make them think he's the Son of God? And even then, they struggle with this. They'll still struggle with this. And we are going to continue to struggle also. We're going to ask the question, am I all alone? Did I do something to deserve this? Have I upset God and now he's putting his hand on me? Is there some secret sin that he's trying to get me to be aware of? I mean, think about it. Why does God put us through trials? It's always to do one thing. Grow our faith. Ultimately, what? Put your eyes on me and trust me. Trust me. Think of Stephen. When he was preaching the word to the Sanhedrin, the scribes and Pharisees, did he trust in the Lord? He did. Where did that get him? He died. Just because we're Christians and we're alive doesn't mean we're going to have smooth sailing. If we're going to be Christians, we're going to have difficulties. We're going to be Christians, we should be finding ourselves in storms all the time. We may even die. Although I have to say, not likely in our country, I think. Will we endure hardship and maybe ridicule? Well, yeah. But I don't think we're anywhere close to having to go through what Stephen went through. But we should be going through difficult times. There should be ups, there should be downs. And ultimately, it's to be putting our eyes on Christ. And remember Peter. I think that's a great example of all. You see that perfect little roller coaster of him going up and down all through that simple little situation. And Christ is always there for him, no matter which side he was on, up or down. He's there for you and me. I want to wrap this up. Any comments or questions?